Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, which Craig Dutch, myself, Roland Hume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry of writing and publishing. And today I am extremely excited to welcome our special guest, Karlyn Ankrom, who is the founder of OSnap Social and has so much to tell us about how authors can use social media effectively. And I think this is the hottest thing in author marketing right now, so I am very excited to hear everything you have to say. Karlyn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here and nerd out with you guys.
You can probably tell my cat has also joined us because my cat wants to hear everything you have to say as well. But that means we are missing one person who we wouldn't be here without, Craig Dutch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
Doing well, thanks, Roland, and thanks for joining us, Karlyn. Social media, that's one of those things that that authors want to pretend doesn't exist, some of us, and others realize that it's one of the keys to success. So we're going to talk to you all about that. But why don't you tell us first about sort of, your background and what got you started with this and who you work with in the author community, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I have a background in journalism, a fancy degree to prove it, which is, I always say, is a fun way of saying I've always loved words and writing and storytelling. And I have owned my agency, OSnap Social, for the past 10 years, 8 years of which I did it full time. And I'm still doing to this day, running that social media boutique agency. And I often say I got my start with the book community when I was helping authors alongside my good friend and referral partner for many years, who's a publicist. And so we kind of worked in tandem together of like creating these not only launch weeks, but also how do we generate more momentum for these nonfiction, specifically thought leaders and published authors, to keep their book out in front, as well as all the podcasts they've been on, all the media mentions. If you did it and you don't talk about it or you don't share it, then did you really do it? So getting more juice out of the squeeze has always been something that I've been focused on for authors and small business owners alike throughout the years. So that's kind of where my start is, and that's where I've been continuing to really nurture authors, specifically nonfiction authors, to continue that momentum through my group program, the Expert Excellence Engine, where we're creating a content engine. Yes, leveraging AI, but more importantly, leveraging your perspectives and expertise and thought leadership to keep that engine running and humming along long after launch day. Because whether we like it or not, when you write a book that is packed with your brilliance, you kind of signed up for a lifetime of telling people about it.
Yeah. And like you said, you work with nonfiction primarily. And so some of what we're going to talk about is going to be more specific to that. But I think in a large part, the overall messages that we're giving here can be applied to fiction as well. Just some of the details that might change, or some of your approaches might have to be a little bit different. When you're writing in a genre, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, you have maybe a broader market. You can appeal to people that like that genre. But if you're writing a nonfiction book about, how to beat depression, you're very specific to who your audience is. And that means you have to sort of go to where the audience is. And sometimes that's harder to figure out, maybe.
Yeah, 100%.
So each book, I think, probably requires sort of a little bit of a different approach in terms of figuring out where the audience lives. And do you have that broken down into different social media sites? Oh, if you're talking about this topic, TikTok's better, but if you're talking about this, you should be on Facebook. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think you kind of started out hitting it perfectly. It really depends who your audience is. When you know inherently, not just like the pie in the sky demographics, but when you really hone in on like the deeper insights around it of what do they wake up every day wanting to be entertained by, right? If you're writing fiction, what is that one pain point that they've been like trying to figure out so they can report back to their boss on the thing? Like, what's that one thing that continuously comes up for them? The pain points, the challenges, the past experiences that have formulated their present and now future experience of, do I want to work with someone like that again? Do I want to read another book in that genre? As you're kind of going forward, it's all about that audience. And so for me, I'm a big fan of not being on all the things. Okay. Even if you have a broad audience, pick one, maybe two, and do them really, really well. Because yes, you can echo content across platforms, but there's always nuance. So for example, Instagram, you can't add a link in the caption because it's not clickable. And Instagram, just like Facebook, though you can add links, at least for now, on Facebook. They keep threatening to take that away. We'll see if that ever happens. I'm like, I don't know about that. You want to have conversations on there. So your engagement is going to be primary on a platform like Instagram versus LinkedIn, where there's more professionals and more people wearing different identifying hats. So like they might be like the Fortune 500 company C-suite executive, but they also could be reading a romance on their lunch break. You know what I mean? Just to escape that reality. So just because they're there as the professional doesn't mean that you can't showcase some of that, their interest as well. I think people ultimately forget those who are logging into social don't actually want to learn anything. They want to be entertained by something. Mm-hmm. So that's why you're seeing, even as nonfiction authors, you have to be willing to tell a story, relate to your audience and what they're going through, right? Or just sheer entertainment. Now, I will have a caveat, a little asterisk side note, is when you're doing that entertaining piece of content, make sure that it's still related to your book or your business. I think I've seen so many people go viral for the wrong thing. Like they're like, look at this cute, viral video of my dog dancing to Shakira, Hips Don't Lie. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's the best. And it goes viral, but has nothing to do with your entire account. So just be mindful of that. Like viral is great and all, but only when it's within the boundaries of what you want to be known for. So that is right. Big warning sign for people.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I mean, you can, from one side of it, I can see how somebody would be like, well, just getting my name out there, blah, 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 right? But most people who are seeing that viral video of your cat dancing are not then clicking onto your profile to read more about you and say, oh, he's a writer of this self-help book, I'm going to go buy it. If your video was about how to teach your cat to dance, then that might be a great video.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why my cat is watching this.
Yeah, she wants to learn how to dance. So when you think of social, how do you place it alongside other types of marketing and advertising? Are you saying that it is a replacement? Does it go sort of side by side? How do you position that with the authors?
Yeah, it has to be a holistic approach. It's not replacing anything. It's part of the larger ecosystem, and it can be an amplifier of the other components. So if you're getting featured on podcasts, social media can amplify that podcast guest appearance by grabbing that short clip and sharing it, by creating an audiogram and sharing it. I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss. Is they're so focused on getting the podcast or getting on the news or, standing and doing a webinar that they forget that the connection point and the amplifier is really your social. Because like it or not, when I'm in this room recording and you're listening to this on the other side, yeah, I have a captive audience, but my expertise is only working part-time for me. Versus if I'm on social, my job is to help your experience and your expertise amplified enough that it's working full time for you, even while you're sleeping. Because people are online, I don't want to say doom scrolling, but they're scrolling in their bed at random hours. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't it be nice just to be like, boop, pop up to their feed and be part of the conversation or part of what they're consuming? And so that's where I'm always like, it's great to do all of these things, but how can social be a part of that, the amplifier of that, the continuation of that momentum?
Right. So are people, if they're running a Facebook ad or they're doing newsletter promotions, I mean, in that sense, they're not really connecting, but, there might be, ancillary effects, getting your name, that whole seven, what's the thing there, Roland, you always talk about the 7 touches, or
Oh yeah, the 7 touches. This was it sounds quite sketchy when you say it now.
yeah. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm like, I feel creepy now.
I learned it from a guy called Gifford when I was selling radio spots like 20 years ago, and it's like every day guys walking down the street, he'll see your advert on a newspaper or on the train, he'll hear your advert on the radio, he'll see it on TV, and so you'll have 7 touch points, so to speak, to get your message across, and it's only after he's heard your message 7 times that he'll actually take action.
Yeah. And I feel like today's world is probably more closer to like 23.
Yeah, and you don't want it to always be that same place that they see you, or the same posts repeated over and over again, right? That's why if you're doing all those things and some of them are hitting the same audience, that's okay. And that's why even with Facebook, they have that frequency number. So, people are like, oh, I don't want it to be shown to people more than once. It needs to be.
It needs to be.
Yeah. So what do you find that the social, I guess for nonfiction, maybe the social is more important than a straight sort of advertising campaign, because you can, I know Facebook allows you to target your audience, and to some degree you could do that. I know, depending on what your topic is some of it's harder or easier to find the right group. But with social, I guess maybe it's a little bit easier if you already know where they are. And Facebook has a lot of groups that you could just join that you can't necessarily target with your advertising, but you could join and start talking. But what about, I know a lot of those groups, and it's probably not just Facebook, they have rules around self-promotion, right? So just joining those groups and saying, hey, I wrote this book about, you can't really do that. They frown on that. So how do you, I guess, get your foot in with that? Do you just sort of join those communities and just start, contributing to them and hope that they click your profile? Like, how are you sort of subtly promoting yourself without promoting yourself on so many of the social medias that say don't self-promote?
I love this question, and I don't get this question a lot, so this is super fun. For me, it's all about social. People forget that social media at its root is the word social, which means conversations, which means building relationships, which means not focusing so much on like gaming the system, or, because as soon as we start to game the system, everything changes, the rules change. So if you're going into these groups, I really want you to focus on building relationships. And I know you're not going to want to hear that, because building relationships is hard to do. It takes nurturing over time, but that's also the compound effect of it as well. I have nurtured relationships online. I feel like I'm like a serial connector when it comes to meeting strangers online and then finding where they hang out in real life, and then we all get together. It's like a thing I've been doing since I was like 21. I'm like, hey, let's all go to Vegas as bloggers and just like hang out. Cool. Let's go to Costa Rica. Like, I just have this like foundational principle of building in joy in my life, as well as laddering up on relationships. Because I can tell you, all of the experiences that have come my way have been because of the people I've connected with over time. Not because they bought my book, not because they bought a program for me, that connection point. And so, yes, I'm not here to say like, just comment and like pray it works out. You have to add really meaningful conversation, kudos, cheerleading, all the things, because that will come back to you when you do say, hey, I had my launch day. Hey, I just finished a chapter of my draft. Like, those are wins, because your name is going to keep coming up for people. And they're going to be like, oh, man, Roland's always in there leaving comments. Or, man, Craig just gave me an awesome insight about the thing that I just asked about. Be a contributor, especially in groups like that, because that will come back tenfold. Because I've seen it happen for me. I've seen it happen for clients who have gained business and gained buyers from these communities.
Yeah, I think
I've noticed.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of people see that and think, oh, that's a big time commitment. And I think when you're writing a a self-help book, especially one that, you know, you're not that super prolific, like a romance writer is writing a book every 3 months, it's maybe easier to spend time, and you're like super focused on that one subject, right? That's your kind of your bread and butter, your life, you're a thought leader in that space. Then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think this is where for your genre writers, they're a little bit more like, oh, you know, I gotta spend all that time to get a few readers and build up this and that. This is where I think with the sort of the nonfiction, it's a little bit easier. Not to say you can't do it. I know Roland was you know, his romance books were about, some of them were about motorcycle biker guys, and so he was posting pictures of motorcycles on his, what was it, on your Instagram, right? And that's a sort of a cohesive thing that you can do that sort of draws people into your whole catalog, not one specific book.
Yeah, I noticed that it was, I think it's easy to post on social if you just make it part of your daily like life flow. So I just had a rule that if I ever saw a Harley Davidson, I'd take a picture of it and I post it on my MC Romance account. And I probably got more motorcycle fans than romance readers, but still, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and that's something that we've often talked to authors about in the past. When I look at you know, I work with a lot of authors, and I see some of the things that successful authors are doing versus non-successful authors. And a lot of the times it is about social, and it is about what you were saying before, is making those connections. And these are genre writers so they have their whatever, Facebook, their Instagram, their Twitter, and they regularly post to it, but they're not always posting about their book. And that's the part that I think a lot of authors don't get. Like, they're like, oh, I'm going to post something about my book. And that's the only time they ever post is, I got a new release coming. Here's my new book. Buy my new book. People, then you're selling and everybody stops listening, right? You have to, like you said, you have to build that relationship with your audience, whether it's a fake one. And I'm not suggesting you should necessarily do that, but like if you have a pen name, and you know, you have this sort of pen name persona, and you don't want to really share about, you know, maybe you're pulling things of your life, but you're changing some details. You still want to just have that sort of those posts so that people feel like they're getting to know you. And then once in a while you say, oh, hey, I have a new book coming, and then people almost feel like, oh, I'm almost a friend of that person. I read about them all the time. I want to support them and buy their book. And that's how I think it works more for genre writers.
And I think another piece that could kind of go fluidly between nonfiction and fiction is, and to steal a line from Gary Vaynerchuk, who's like a serial entrepreneur, he says, document, don't create. And so just like Roland made a rule for himself, every time he saw a Harley, he was going to take a picture and post it. That's the same thing if you're a fiction writer operating under a pen name. Like, keep people updated that a new release is coming. It doesn't have to appear out of the blue. Like, you can continue to parse that out and tell people, or like, you know, where I'm writing today, and it's like a gorgeous scenery, you know, if you're like, or at a coffee shop or wherever you are, like that can be a piece of content for you to, and also does exactly what you said, Craig. It brings people to you, right? It's like, gives them a little, they notice a chai tea latte sitting next to your laptop and they're like, oh, that's what I drink too. You know what I mean? Just like those subtle details that really bring people into it and get them bought into the journey of getting their next release out there.
Yeah. I think a lot of readers want to feel like they know an author, and whether or not that knowing is, oh, you follow them. And that's why we have that celebrity culture, and people are like, oh, look at the Taylor Swift marriage. And some people are like, who cares? And other people are like, oh, I have to know all the details, right? It's almost like you feel like you're part of their lives when you know those things. And then it makes you sort of more interested in what else they're working on. And that's how you make that connection. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm a big fan of the author Jack Carr, and what he does that's so powerful is he basically just has his life out there on display. So he talks about his books, but he also goes shooting and hunting and barbecues, and also goes on shooting competitions and all this stuff that appeals to his target demographic. And they're like, I want to be like Jack Carr, and you can buy into being like Jack Carr by buying his books. And it's kind of you have to buy into the lifestyle by buying the books.
Yeah. And this is another example, like that reminded me of the fiction author Geneva Rose. She writes like murder mystery of The Perfect Divorce and all that. She appeared on my feed one day because she was, again, published, successful, fine. You know, she has this thing where she goes into like Barnes and Nobles or Targets or whatever, and she does like twirls. She like literally twirls her body to her books, and then she like signs all of them, and and her husband's the one filming behind the camera, and then it's like, and we're done, and she like takes a bow, and then she does like like she does robot hands and voices as she's walking out of the frame, and her husband is doing the sound like but that is like episodic for her, because the first couple of videos she did like that, people were loving it. She was getting discovered by the algorithms, which is all fine and well, but that became like a thing. And so then people started recognizing her twirling in a Barnes and Noble, and like would stop her as mid twirl, like, you know, hey, are you Geneva Rose? And so it just continued. And that's something I will tell all authors listening to this. Once you're doing social media and you find a pattern or something that's really hitting, and it goes, I'm going to air quote this, viral for you, double down. Do that same style of video again and again and again. Because
that sounds like phenomenal. Do you know that there's that guy, I can't remember his name, but he his whole skit is he does something really obvious and then he's like,
yeah, where he's like, yeah,
and he
does
in the last James Bond video, he had a cameo as his character because of that. And I thought, isn't that amazing? Do the same thing again and again, and you too can be in a James Bond video again.
Insane. I feel like I've really heard it all.
So do you have a sort of favorite that you suggest of the social sites to authors, or are you pretty much just depending on what their topic is, you'll suggest they focus on one of the other?
It depends, topic, audience. I mean, for fiction, I just feel like Book Talk is so good for just TikTok. I don't play a lot over there because a lot of the people that I serve don't play over there, and their audience doesn't play over there. But the fact that we've been able to, as a society community, leveraging a place like TikTok to create like best-selling weeks again for books that have been published for decades is just like wild.
Yeah. One of our first podcasts, we spoke to an author who created a TikTok video about a book that was, I think it was a couple of years old, and it was just a throwaway video she did after coming home from the gym one day, and then the next morning she was getting calls and DMs and like, what's going on? And she checks, and it went viral, and it led to her getting movie offers, and like it was just crazy. And this was a couple of years ago, or more than a couple of years ago, a few years ago at this point. I've been doing this for a while. But I think there's some authors that are not as comfortable. That's the other side of it, I guess, is, Book Talk does require that you create videos, and not everyone is sort of a videographer or comfortable being on camera or knows what they, has the ideas about visually creating something that, especially on an ongoing basis, right? So they might be more comfortable in the Twitter space, X, I think LinkedIn is again more for nonfiction, but Facebook, I don't know, it's not as cool these days to be on Facebook. I don't even know.
Cool or not, if your people are there, do it. You know? And I think I hear that a lot, the resistance to video, and something that I always equate it to is people expect imperfection. That sounds even wild to say out loud in a social media setting. They don't want the bells and whistles. They don't want like all this like curated garbage, because they want real. They want in the moment. They want you to just, like, to your point where you said about your example, Craig, like pop up after the, gym and just talk, sweaty hair, whatever it's doing, sharing it because it feels authentic. And especially in a world that is just bombarded with AI and information, that's the one thing that we as humans get to control. We get to share our perspectives, our own insights, our aha moments. AI could never. Okay. So how can we create that? And does that mean you have to do a talk to camera video? No. But even if I've done videos where I was like, I'm not vibing with how I'm looking today, but I'm still going to do a video, a 10-second pan, right? Of your, I don't know, I'm making it up, but like your walk. You know, you went outside and you took in fresh air because you've been on a writing sprint for X amount of days. I'm taking a walk. And then a word wall is what we call it, which we're all writers. We all love to write and tell stories. You create a word wall, which is essentially a lot of text on top of a video. And that's the post. That's it. 10 seconds panning, you know, some type of idea on top of it. And this is what's crazy. It doesn't even have to relate to like you're walking. It could literally just be like a pan of your walk. And then you're talking about the one thing that you remembered about your childhood that really made the difference in where you are today. And people get hung up. Well, I can't read it that fast. It's only a 7-second video, 10-second video. I can't read that whole thing in 10 seconds. Good. That's the point, because then people have to rewatch it over and over and over. And then your views go up and up.
Ooh,
and up.
That's diabolical.
I get that all the time. People are like, I can't read that, Karlyn. It's going too fast. I'm like, that's the whole point. That's the point. People are forced to watch it multiple times.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I know Facebook used to have a rule, and I think it's gone now, but about how much text you could have in an ad, because they were kind of like, people don't want to read the text, but they took it away because sure they do. And that's
absolutely do.
Yeah. And I mean, especially for authors, it's like, if somebody doesn't want to read the text that's on your ad, they're not going to want to read your book either, I think.
Yeah.
And so, a word wall might sound like, oh, who wants to read that? It's like, well, people that are interested in reading, and those are the ones you want if you're selling a book.
And I will tell you, like, out of the clients that we've done that to, who have also had resistance to that, they're like, who's going to read that? I'm like, watch and learn, right? And it was literally a pan, the word wall. And I think out of the months of content, that was like in the top 3 of best performing pieces of content. And it didn't even have her face in it, which I thought was really interesting. We did it the same thing. Go ahead.
Oh, when you get presented with words, you can't help but read them.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, what if we actually put you in the background doing something? Making coffee, drinking wine, reading a book on a couch. And then the word wall appeared. That did even better than just like the nature scan or like the non-people, because the algorithm loves to see people, and we as humans love to also see other people. So if you can, even if you don't want to talk on camera, if you can be somehow in like a B-roll scenario, sitting on your couch, drinking coffee, reading a book, sitting at your computer, typing up your next novel, all of that is relevant. And then you put the word wall and then you're done.
And what was the word wall about in that case? Was it just about their book?
It could be about their book. It could be about the journey of writing, their next manuscripts, like, me deep in thought, about my last vacation and how I'm going to integrate that into my next novel. I'm like literally pulling at nothing, but.
Well, no, I was just thinking, like the words have to be interesting and compelling, or probably they're not gonna could be a page from your book, I guess, too, right?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, and there's like a framework that I always walk people through, and it's 1 page, 1 line, 1 post. So like if you're like, I don't know what to use as a word wall, open up your book, pick a page, find that like one like money line, or like that scenario where like, oh, that was a juicy line, and you make that part of that word wall, or even part of that hook that is like that first line of your post that like gets people to stop scrolling and go like lean in and say like, what is she saying? What is he saying? And then you set the scene, deliver that lesson or value, and then ask them to do that next step in the post. So that's an easy way of looking at it, is 1 page, 1 line, 1 post at a time.
Yeah.
I might have to give that a try today.
Please do that. And let me know how it goes. Please reach out.
Do you, I guess, when it comes to social, I mean, I think of, I guess, the big ones, but sometimes people talk about ones that I never even really heard of. Or, are you pretty much standardized on, the LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook and X and TikTok, or are there others secret ones that you know about that are good?
I'm also on Substack right now. I wouldn't say that's like a social media platform. I feel like it's more like a community platform, but I think it's a natural place for writers who are hanging out. They're over there. And it's an easier way to monetize your writing in the in-between. So like in between having the books, right? Or if you're testing out a new idea, that's where I've been seeing a lot of people have some growth. I will say I'm very new in the Substack universe in terms of like the monetization aspect. If you even go on YouTube and you ask like, Substack monetization, you're probably gonna get like loads of videos because everyone and their mother thinks they're an expert in like 5 seconds. But I'm not an expert in Substack yet. But I also know that's a really humming place for writers to be at as well.
We just had a very good guest talk about a strategy for Substack.
Ooh, who is it?
I'll look that up as we're talking.
Now I'm gonna go listen to it.
It was it wasn't just, but it was in the last I think it was this year at least. But we had somebody come on who has a Substack, and it was an interesting conversation because I don't know a lot about it either, and it's after reading that, or after talking to him, I was thinking
it was Peter Moore. I don't want Peter to be watching this and being like, "What? You don't even remember my name?" No, it was Peter Moore talking to us about Substack, and he had some really great insight on it.
Yeah. So Substack, and then the other one, also not really like a social platform, but sometimes gets lumped into it, is YouTube. For like repurposing those word wall videos, you can add them over there as shorts because YouTube just has an amazing discoverability because it's owned by Google and all that. And Pinterest for fiction authors, I think, is really underestimated in a lot of ways.
That's a really interesting thing to say. I've heard that because Pinterest is a largely female leaning platform, and of course most readers are female leaning, especially if you're writing fiction, especially if you're writing like romance or something.
Yeah, and that's a great place to repurpose those media mentions if you're in a rundown of like the top 4 books I need to be reading on the beach this summer. Like, post that up there, because guess what people are searching for? Beach reads. And they want to see other people talking about different ones that they want to be part of. So that's another place that gets very underrated in general.
Yeah, I don't even think about Pinterest anymore. I barely ever go on there other than, if I Google recipes and somebody's got a little bored of all these different things. I think that's the last time I was on a Pinterest board.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another one for sure. So when somebody comes to you for help with social, what is the advice that you're typically giving the most, other than, the one word, one post, that sort of thing? But, and what sort of steps do you take them through? Do you say, okay, let's figure out, here's your topic. Let's figure out where, the best social sites are, where the people are living, and then figure out a strategy for your posts? Is that sort of how it goes, or?
More or less. I think the biggest thing that we start with is a pulse check, where we're like popping the hood on their existing platforms that they're consistent with or posting on or have a presence on. And we're popping it and looking at the metrics and being like, okay, out of these metrics, and based on what you told me in the discovery call, like, what are our goals here? Like, what do we really want what do we want success to look like on social media? I asked all my clients that, and some people look at me like they have no idea, that they were surprised that I even asked the question. And some folks have clarity of like, I want to sell 500 copies by the end of the quarter. Awesome. Great. And then I go backwards and I look at the data. Well, what's been our track record so far? How are we positioning the book on socials to get to that part, right? Where are we playing? If we're on Instagram, we know that getting them over to a website to buy a book is a little bit of a harder job, because that's just not the nature of that platform in reality. So all of that goes into that. So we pop the hood, look at the numbers, find that baseline, and then we build the strategy from there, which then leans into their goals and target demographics, all those things. And then the different kind of content cadence. How often are we posting? What are we posting? Why are we posting that? What's the purpose of it? so that at the other side, we can measure the metrics that matter. I think people get wrapped up into like how many followers they have and how many views they got. I mean, and I've been saying it for the past 8 years, but like followers in reality don't matter unless they're paying you or buying a book. Because all it does is take one person to be like, I'm buying. Even if that post got 7 likes, one person bought, and the post right next door to it had 400 likes and no one bought. You know what I mean? So it's like everything is very subjective when it comes to metrics. And I always bring that up because we get so wrapped up in the vanities of all the things that we forget, like, what are we going after? We're going after 500 people to buy my book by the end of the quarter. Then what do we have to do? Reverse engineer to get to them to that point. That's where the strategy is built out. And then from my agency side of things, then we figure out, what does that mean in terms of doing the doing? What B-roll do we have to get? Like, that's where all like the mechanics kind of come together, and we start to execute and implement the content according to the strategy with that goal and that person that we're trying to reach through the screen top of mind.
You mentioned a very interesting thing about the connection between quantifying it all, because I think we got kind of spoiled by like the .com revolution and Google ads and stuff, and everyone thinks, oh, I will be able to track every single sale right down to the post that they saw it on, and that's not true. I noticed when I shifted from selling on Amazon to direct sales to my own website, I was doing adverts that were pointing only to my website, and yet every time I did that, I noticed that my organic sales on Amazon would double or triple or something like that, just because people see your book and then next time they're on Amazon, they look you up. And there's no way to like have a direct line between those two, but it's very clear from the sales data that it has a direct effect.
Yes. And I think we all want to know, like, we're so curious. And I also feel like it's part of Google's job, to be honest. It's part of Google's job to kind of keep us like partly in the dark, because if we all knew how Google worked and the algorithm of Google and all of that worked, we'd all try to game the system. We'd all be number one and then be like, what's the point? Yep. That actually happened a couple years ago when someone like gamed the algorithm, propped up a new website, threw all of this AI slop all over it, and they got like millions of views on their website. And then Google's like, hold up, wait a minute. No, we ain't playing that. Then as fast as that trend peaked at like 1 million views, right down into the depths it went. So it just goes to prove you have to stay consistent long enough to identify the patterns, to see, what's working and what's not working. I think as humans, we're like, oh, that didn't work, change. Oh, that didn't work, change. Versus, no, let me be consistent about this. Let me post 3 days a week for the next 3 months, alternating between this B-roll, word wall content, talk to camera videos, and a static quote from my one page. Let's try all the things, then start to parse out what's working well, and does that what's working, air quote, well, ladder up to my goal.
Consistency is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, it is.
And I mean, I guess that's kind of what you guys were sort of getting at, is sometimes it's not that easy though to tell what's working, especially if you can't rely on likes and shares and there's no direct connection between, what happens and what is a sale, other than sort of just looking at it and saying, hey, these are, correlated in time. So what are you specifically looking at when it comes to, I guess, the success? Is it just, okay, here, your goal was sell 500 books in a month, so if we make that, we're successful? I mean, and can you say that all those sales came from your efforts, or, maybe they had other things happening?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could take credit for all of the sales, right? But no.
Do you ever use Amazon attribution tags to allow people to track more directly? Because you could put those right into your social posts too.
Yeah, and then you can like leverage that, and you can also, Google Analytics, I think, is a lot of people, don't look at, but it can be very telling as to what, especially if you are directing people over to like a website that you own, that is going to be really telling as well, of like, okay, out of like the 3 social platforms I'm posting on, what's actually driving traffic? Where, and also, what am I being consistent with enough to know that this number is actually real? right? Like it's true to what I'm trying to get at. But if you're posting, you know, once this week, 2 times next week, none the next week, 4 times the following week, like the algorithm's like, which is it? It gets confused. And I'm not a fan of blaming the algorithm for anything, but I'm just telling you what it likes. And that's what it likes right now. It could all change in 2 seconds, as we know. But it likes consistency. That's been a standard. It likes video. And that is platform agnostic, video across platforms. From my experience and the data that I've run month over month over month with all of my clients, that's been consistent. And it likes people, pictures of people, backs of the heads of people sitting in a park bench. Like it likes people, it recognizes people, and it serves that up to more people.
So you think those are consistent across all the different platforms, right? Is that what you're saying?
Can you say that one more time?
Those 3 things, like videos, consistency, people, they're consistent across all the social platforms.
From my experience, yes.
I was going to say one of the other things is that it has to, if you are successful in grabbing people's attention early, and your piece of content seems to have legs, then the algorithms will show it to more people, won't they? So it's like right from the get-go, your content's either going to like sink or fly.
I love this analogy because this is exactly how I describe, like, what does viral mean? Like, oh, I want my post to go viral. If I had a nickel, everyone's like, can you make me go viral? I'm like, I would be a millionaire probably at this point.
Yeah.
I never promise that, because it's your version of viral is different from my version of viral, which is different from, so the reason, how I explain the concept of virality is think about like a lake. The lake is the internet, or let's actually make it more narrow. The lake is Instagram. Okay. Your pebble is your 10-second short form video or reel. You throw the pebble bloop, into the lake. What happens? Rings start to form around it, right? The first ring are your like die hard, would rock out with you no matter what. Those are your like raving fans. They typically will see your content first because they typically engage with your content. The second ring are people that the algorithm's like, I think I can get down with, I think this person would relate to or it's the friends of the people in your inner circle. So it's like that, like literally 1 degree of separation. And then from there, it starts to continue to build, because the more we engage with that piece of content in the comments, which is why going back and what we touched on earlier of like engaging, not just with other people, but when someone leaves a comment back to them. Because the only thing that does is it bubbles your piece of content to the top of the lake as well. People are like, and we always worry about all the different, people that I only got 2 comments. Well, did you reply back to the 2 people who took the 1 minute out of their day to leave you one? Well, no. Okay. Can we treat the likes and the comments as actual human beings and be appreciative for who is there paying attention to you and like recognizing them for it, rather than worrying about who's not there?
That's such a good point, because you think about it, you have a post and you might be like, oh, I only got 40 likes on this post. 40 individual people saw your content and decided to tap on it.
Can you imagine if 40 people walked into your office right now to be like, hey, what's you doing? You'd be like, why are you here? Please get out.
I mean, you think of the impact that we as quote unquote nobodies can have now compared to the impact that like actual successful authors had 50 years ago. I mean, if you were an author and you had 50 people like a thing about your book, that would be a massive deal, because you never had the ability to reach so many people. And now you do, and we kind of take it for granted.
Yeah. And I think the way that social media right now is playing up is it's less about who you're following. It's more about what you're interested in. And I think that is a game changer for a lot of people who don't have a lot of followers. Is it's an even playing field. You scroll, and I challenge all of you today, scroll on your Instagram the next time you open it up and see how many people on there that you don't actually follow. Because I can guarantee you about 2 swipes, you'll find at least 3 people who you don't follow that the algorithm's like, hey, I think you need to know this person, or I think you need to watch this piece of content. And that is powerful for people who don't have a ton of audience or a ton of reach. If you make solid content that identifies your audience in that piece of content, it makes it easier for the algorithm to serve it up to the right people at the right time.
And you could actually do something about that. Like I know in Facebook, if somebody likes your post and they're not already a fan of your page, you can invite them to become one. And that's one of the most effective ways to grow your audience on Facebook.
Yes, on Facebook, 100%. I do that all the time, especially if I'm running any paid traffic.
And then, you know, going back to sort of that, the idea of replying to the comments, I guess that's going to boost the overall comments as well, right? Like, you know, if only 2 people are making comments, but then you reply to them, then that's 4. And then they might reply back to you. And then there's another 2. Now, I don't know how the algorithm works, if it's going to, like, you know, discount your own comments or replies to your comments. No. So, you know, you're going to boost it double the amount of comments just by replying to them all. And likely you're going to maybe even start a conversation that's going to turn them into even bigger threads.
Yeah. And it builds a relationship and it grows your trust and your value and all the things, because, oh my gosh, you're human. Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, it looks like we're approaching the top of the hour, so we're going to have to wrap things up, which is pity because I love this. You're providing such value with everything that you're saying. So I was going to ask Craig, do you have any final questions before we ask Karlyn to tell us where everyone can find her stuff, find out about her, find out about my social and everything like that?
No, I mean, you know, like you said, this has been fascinating, and I love these kind of discussions because we always learn so much about it's such important topics, and social media is one of those ones that so many authors I hear, like, oh, I don't do social, I keep meaning to, and I don't know what to write, and I don't know what to do, and I get it because I feel the same way. I'm not a big fan, but you have to, it's part of the game, you know, these days. And so just listening to things like this, it can just give you at least a starting point to figuring out what you need to do. You just that tip alone, you know, post something and then reply to the comments. Now you've doubled your amount of comments and probably even more. Like that alone is worth the time it took to hear this whole conversation. But it was, of course, filled with lots of other gems. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, where can everybody find out more about you, find out more about what you do and how you can help them or how you can inspire them?
Yeah, you can visit OSnapSocial, ohsnapsocial.com. And there you'll find all about my Fan Firestarter framework, my Expert Excellence Engine program for authors, as well as all the connections to social.
Well, that is fantastic. We'll make sure to pop a link down to that in the description of this video. So whether you are listening on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube, scroll down there, click on that link and go and check out OSnap Social. But while you're there, you will also pass that big empty comment section. So make sure you leave Karlyn a comment and let her know how much you've appreciated everything she shared with us today. And I think you provided enormous value. I feel quite inspired. And while you're down there, there's also that subscribe button. If you haven't already, smash that like button, as the kids say. And also there is that the bell icon. If you click on that, you will get notified every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked, which of course there will be same time next week. So until then, thank you so much, Karlyn, and we will see you next week. Cheerio.